Firstly, a quick reminder of what I mean by the word legislation. Legislation is a broad term, but typically we mean things like statutes, also called Acts of Parliament, and secondary legislation, such as statutory instruments. You may be aware of the website Legislation.gov.uk. This is a government website that makes legislation, such as Acts of Parliament, freely available for everybody to read. I believe it's essential that this website exists. It's important that everyone that is subject to these laws is able to read these laws. However, as law students, this website does have limitations. It's not updated as often as Westlaw or Lexis Library. There can be a significant lag before legislation updates are published on this website. And also, the content on Westlaw and Lexis Library is much richer. There's annotations, there's links to further reading, you can click through to cases, etc. So, I strongly recommend that you use either Westlaw or Lexis Library, as you'll get a lot more out of it than you will from legislation.gov.uk. So, here are a couple examples of the sort of things that you might be asked to read. So I've got two examples here of sections, Section 12 of the Human Rights Act and Section 3 of the Marriage Act. This is quite normal that you're asked to read particular sections rather than a whole act. When we look at the databases in a moment, you'll see that both Westlaw and Lexis Library use the word provision. What provision means is a part of an act. Typically this is sections, but it could be other things such as parts or schedules. If we wanted to read one of these pieces of legislation on Lexis Library, we'd go into Lexis Library via the library homepage and then go to legislation in the blue bar that runs across the top of the screen. You then get this search field. Pop in the title of the act, so in this case Human Rights Act 1998 in the title box. We could just press search then, and what we get a long list of all of the sections in this act. What's quicker though, because we know the section we want, is to pop 12 in the provision box and then press search. We'll then just get a single search result, which is Section 12 of the Human Rights Act. When you look at a piece of legislation in Lexis Library, you'll see this horizontal bar that runs along the top. This allows you to quickly jump to previous versions of the section, so you can see how it's changed over time. Also, there's some handy tabs underneath. The hidden tab is quite helpful. If there's any content that has been repealed, it might just show up as empty brackets or 3 dots. If you click hidden, it gets rid of all of that sort of clutter and just shows you the current text. Also, keep an eye out for this golden speech bubble. If you click on the golden speech bubble, it will give you some annotations. For example, if there's any significant words used in the section you're reading, it will show you where this word is legally defined, and it will also point you to other relevant annotations. If you want to use Westlaw, it works in a very similar way. Again, use the library website to get to Westlaw and then select legislation in the bar that runs along the top. You can then go to the legislation search box, which looks like this. Again, we've got the title box. So this time I'm using Marriage Act 1949 in the title box. Again, we see the word provision. This time there's a drop-down box. So we pick section from the drop-down box. We know it's a section because do you remember our reference said S3 and S is section. I then pop 3 in the box next to it and press search. Remember, you don't have to use the provision number field. If you just use the title field, you'll get the whole Act, and then you can pick Section 3. When you're reading legislation in Westlaw, there'll always be a bar that runs down the left-hand side. If you click on primary references in this left-hand bar, you'll see links to relevant cases, so cases that have cited this section in court. So when it comes to coursework, that's a really handy shortcut to find relevant cases. Similarly, if you click on commentary references, then, if there are any, there'll be links to relevant journal articles that discuss this section of legislation. Again, really handy for coursework. Also, in Westlaw, if you scroll down below the text of the legislation, you might find a slightly darker box called statutory annotations. So, for example, if this legislation was discussed in court or in Parliament, then there might be some excerpts here. This analysis is quite helpful because often legislation can be very, very short and concise and almost bland, whereas these annotations give you a bit more richness and help you understand the legislation in more detail.